Ladies and gentlemen, we are officially in Charles Oliveira fight week.
Braço pra casa, deixou ele rodar, foi pras costas de novo. Vai apertar o pescoço, vai pegar. Se não bater, vai pagar. Charles do Bronx, é do Brasil. Vai pegar, vai pegar. Charles do Bronx, é do Brasil. Vibra, Charlinho, vibra que essa é tua.
And I just want to say, guys, I'm worried for my boy Charles, man. I'm worried for my guy. What's going on, YouTube? It's your boy Christian, a.k.a. I Hate You Dior, and we're going to be talking today about UFC 309, specifically the co-main event, Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler 2. They fought in 2021 for the lightweight belt after it got vacated when Khabib left. And if you haven't seen the fight, which you probably should because it's a really good fight, it's one of my all-time favorite fights to watch. It's really not that long. And the reason why it's not so long is because Charles Oliveira did TKO him in the second round. I was going to say submission. I don't know why, but he did TKO him. First round, on the other hand, first round was pretty fucking crazy. I'm not going to lie. And I'm not going to sit here and act like, I'm not excited for this fight because the narrative is like, oh, we've seen this fight already. This is going to be the same fucking thing. It's not going to be the same thing. It's going to be different because a lot of people don't remember how close that first round was because Michael Chandler round 1 is a fucking beast. He is going to try to take Oliveira's head off in that first round. He has the wrestling and the power to try to take the fight to Oliveira like he did in their first fight where he just came out in the first round fucking swinging, bro. In round 1, Charles goes for a takedown, got caught in the gilly by Chandler. Chandler had it in good. He escapes, scrambles with him on the ground, and then fucking Michael Chandler just drops Oliveira, and the round 1 ends. Round 2, Charles gets the dub, right? But that could happen again in this fight, and this is why I think so. We got to look at both men's careers after that fight, where in the case of Charles, we have afterwards, he went on his title run where he fought Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, Islam Makhachev, Beneil Dariush, and Arman Tsarukyan, where he went 3 out of 2 on those last 5 fights, right? If you look at just his last 3, he is 1-2 in his last 3, which are Islam, Arman, and Beneil Dariush. Now, if you look at Chandler, his record recently is a little spotty. If you don't know, he hasn't fought in about 3 years because he has been waiting for this Conor McGregor fight. But if you look at it before that, his last fight was in 2022 on the Israel Adesanya Alex Pereira card, where he did fight Dustin Poirier. People don't remember how close that fight was either. Before that, he had his fight with Justin Gaethje. Before that, it was his fight with Charles Oliveira. Oh, no, excuse me. He didn't fight Charles before Justin. Before Justin, he fought Tony. He fought Tony Ferguson before Justin. And if you haven't seen that knockout, that's when he hit him with the really, heavy head kick on the button, right? Before that, I believe, I might be getting the timeline messed up in my head, but before that is when he fought Charles, and then before that, he fought Dan Hooker. So Michael Chandler on the opposite end of Charles, where Charles is 3-2 in his last 5. Michael's 2-3 in his last 5, only winning against old man Tony Ferguson and a Daniel Hooker, who at the time just wasn't really training. He said this so himself because I was around quarantine. I guess in New Zealand, things were a little bit different, so he wasn't really able to train outside of his garage. But then he had a competitive enough fight with Charles, where he dropped him in the first. Competitive fight with Gaethje, where they went all 3 rounds. And a fight against Dustin Poirier, where he was winning. Kind of had some stupid moments. I think you guys have seen the clip of him winging hooks and basically just rocking Poirier. And instead of him staying there, he goes for a double leg, which ended up pretty bad because at the end of the fight, he did get his back taken and Dustin Poirier got a rear naked choke submission, which is something that he hasn't done in God knows how long before that fight. But although he's losing to these guys, they're a little competitive, a little too competitive for my liking. And you have to look at the physicality of Michael Chandler. Small, 5 foot something, 155, super fucking dense for the weight class. probably on some kind of steroids. We all seen Michael Chandler's gut. He has that HGH gut. But goddamn, Michael Chandler's fucking huge for 155. It amazes me how at his age currently he's able to still make that, because he is pushing 40, which is another factor that kind of plays into it, because he's had a long career, man. People forget he was fighting in Bellator since around like 2010, 2011, all the way leading up into his UFC career. Has some good wins over people like Benson Henderson, Eddie Alvarez. You know, he was making a name for himself outside of the UFC. He was definitely one of the biggest names at Bellator, one of the biggest names outside of the UFC. And then he had a good showing against Hooker. He was supposed to be the backup fight against Gaethje. He was supposed to be the backup for when Khabib fought Gaethje, excuse me. A lot of people actually forgot that, leading up to his next fight where it was for the belt against Charles, right? So it's been a lot of ups and downs with Chandler, but the fact still remains, he's strong. He hits like a fucking truck. And when he fucking hits you, he's putting his entire body into it. I know you guys have seen the Tony Ferguson fight. The knockout itself, you can see, like, you've probably seen the photo or the slow motion of it, but I'll probably put it up here on screen. But you can see Tony's entire head just move back with the force of his kick. That being said, though, people also don't really remember that fight. Tony Ferguson was whooping Michael Chandler's ass in the first round. Second round, just fucking threw a perfectly timed head kick, got Tony Ferguson out of there, right? So you have this guy, small, compact, dense, fucking brolic, just coming out there spamming overhands and hooks like he's Josh Emmett to get you the fuck out of there, bro. So you on paper, you have a pretty bad matchup for Charles, because on top of everything else I just mentioned, Chandler's a Division I wrestler, NCAA wrestler from college, took that into his MMA base, but recently he's been really more so focusing on his striking. A lot of people don't really remember too is that Michael Chandler can get very technical when he chooses to be technical, which isn't a lot. Michael Chandler's biggest downfall is his fight IQ. This has costed him a lot of moments in fights, such as I mentioned before, him shooting a double leg on Dustin Poirier against the fence when Dustin Poirier was rocked, and he was rocking Dustin Poirier. His IQ kind of fails him sometimes, man. I don't think he's really the brightest tool in the shed. I love Michael Chandler. I think he's a great fighter, but a lot of dumb decisions. Waited 3 years to fight Conor. I know it's the money fight, but it's gonna affect them, man. But everything else aside, and it really hurts me to say this because Charles Oliveira is one of my favorite fighters, but he's not the same. We saw that going into his Arman Tsarukyan fight where he's not really the same. Before that, he did have his fight with Dariush where he got Dariush out of there early, but there were some moments where we were like, this doesn't really look like the usual Charles Oliveira, man. Nonetheless, he still got the finish in the second round. Now, for Arman, though, it's a little tricky. Arman was able to use his pressure to kind of avoid the submissions of Charles Oliveira. One occasion, there was the time, I don't know if y'all have seen it, but Charles had the guillotine on Arman. Kind of used his shorts to get out of it. I know, short gate, it's a thing. But other than that, had a good anaconda choke, had a good triangle. Both of these submissions locked him really deep against Tsarukyan. And he was just able to survive them. He was able to use his wrestling, be able to get better positioning. And just in the striking, he just had a lot more aggressiveness and was willing to push the pace more against Charles, who in that fight looked a little slow, man. And we even go back further than that. Let's talk about the Islam fight, right? Because this fight, this is where things get a little tricky, man. Someone like Islam, who's a really good striker, really good wrestler, very good kicks, very good hands, overall one of the best grapplers in the entire UFC, without a doubt, right? In my opinion, I think he's, well-deserved of his number one pound-for-pound status. I think he's the lightweight GOAT, and I honestly think he's top 4, top 5 all time. But that's a topic for another video, because I know people been on YouTube talking about their top 15 favorite fighters of all time, but yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna pick. It's probably gonna be something similar to the other list, but going back to the video, right? Charles, his fight with Islam, there was a lot of things that Islam was able to take advantage of, and that really came down to striking. It came down to the positioning and his grappling that he was able to use against Charles. Charles, for the most part, was getting pressured heavy against Islam when they fought. Charles was the one trying to initiate the grappling exchange between him and Islam even knew that if he tried to go into a wrestler mode against somebody like Charles, it could end pretty badly for him. So if you rewatch the fight, a lot of it does take place on the feet, where Charles was just having not the most success against Islam. Arm triangle finish that he ends up getting in around the second or third round, I don't really remember, but the arm triangle finish that he gets is because Charles Oliveira whiffs a jumping crane kick and just gets rocked by Islam and dropped to the ground, where once he was on the ground and he was rocked, Islam knew this was his chance to go in for the triangle, sinks it in, and the rest is history, right? I can see Chandler, and I say I can see with very, 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 very big quotation, because we all know there's not a fucking game plan in the world that Chandler will follow. But that being said, I think if Chandler's able to take advantage of him the same way that Islam was and able to use those little weaknesses to his advantage, it might not be good for Charles just because of Michael Chandler's physicality. Charles gets hit a lot. He likes to be on his back a lot. Against a wrestler like Michael Chandler, who is a good, competent wrestler, fucking heavy-handed, rocked him in the first fight. There's a lot of things pointing against Charles in this, man. And that sucks because I love Charles Oliveira. He's one of my favorite fighters just ever. Like, I think he's probably my top 3, top 2, maybe even I second that because Max is pretty clearly my favorite fighter, but Charles is definitely a close second, right? So me thinking in my head, damn, Charles might fucking lose this. It's scary, man. It's scary because there's a lot of things on Charles' side, right? Where you look at it, and he's been more active. He hasn't taken a 3-year layoff. He's looked good against the same levels of competition. Aside from Islam, in the Dustin fight and in the Gaethje fight, way more success than Chandler was able to get. And that's because of his grappling, really. His grappling, I think MMA Shea said this in his most recent video about it, but Charles Oliveira is a fucking spaz on the ground. You can't really expect to try to keep him down or hold him down because he's moving so much. And that's the thing that they took away from him in both the Arman fights and the Islam fights because of their top pressure. Michael Chandler's strong. Is he the same level of wrestler as Arman and Islam? I don't think so. But that's where, Oliveira doesn't have his most success. Right on his back, he's really good. We know this. He can go for a submission anywhere, right? But if you're smothering him with the same way Islam and Arman did, defending the submission attempts, he has a key to victory in this fight. But that's all, like I said, in quotation marks, because who the fuck knows what's Chandler gonna do? Chandler doesn't even know his game plan for this fight. Chandler's probably thinking in his Tennessee gym, in his nice farmhouse, thinking, I'm gonna just go out there and I'm gonna fucking just swing and I'm gonna take Oliveira's head off. Which worked for him for the most part in the first fight. Until it didn't. And that's the story of Michael Chandler, unfortunately. So I'm picking Charles, right? But I can't confidently trust Chandler to pull off something like a win against Charles. But goddamn, that first round Michael Chandler is a fucking animal. He will try to kill Oliveira. And if I see him get done up worse than Arman, worse than Islam, I'm deleting my channel. Not JK. But definitely there's a chance that first round Chandler might put him to sleep. And that's a reality we kind of have to, get used to, because it's a big chance that happens. But there's an even bigger chance that Charles gets the sub. Or maybe TKO, who knows? But he's not the same fighter. Charles is older. He's not on that same kind of hype, kind of, heat fire that he had when he had the belt, when he was going on an 8-fight win streak. It's not the same. You never really, after a loss like that, And I feel like in his head, he knows that, you know, he doesn't really have a chance against Islam because Islam is a horrible matchup for Charles. So is Arman. It's not the same fire that he had, man. So it's gonna be interesting to see how this fight plays out. I am picking Charles, but that's a risky pick, man, especially with the way things have been. Max got knocked out. Oh, my boy Max got knocked out. I just remembered. My boy Max got knocked out, man. Max got knocked out. Gaethje got knocked out. Volk got fucking knocked out. Like, it's not looking good. It's not looking good for my favorite fighters, man. But, hey, you know what? We're going to see on Saturday night, man.
We get to find out Saturday night, man. I can't wait.
We're going to see how it plays out. Making more videos this week leading into the fight. I did take a little bit of a break. Nothing crazy, but I did kind of just get a little lazy. So I'm getting back into the swing of things. Expect more videos, especially this week. I'm going to plan on talking about Miocic versus Jones in my upcoming video and why I think Miocic can get it done. So yeah, I'm gonna see you guys in that video. If you like the video, leave a like. If you agree with me, if you disagree with me, leave a comment. If you like videos like these, subscribe to the channel. You know, 90% of my viewers aren't subscribed to the channel, so if you appreciate content like this, make sure to smash that red button and hit the bell for post notifications so you know every time I upload a new video. And I'm gonna see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Brother, honestly, I can do many things.